Live from Keene, New Hampshire, the most watched TV news show in Keene, the Keene Weekly News with Mark Edgington. Coverage of local and national events starts now.
Hi, I'm Mark Edgington. You're watching the Keene Weekly News. Today is October the 26th, 2007. Thanks for watching. Now, don't be fooled by the name. Keene Weekly News really is an opinion show. An opinion show all about my opinions. So, let's go right into the news, shall we? I've got some opinions that I'd like to share. Well, World Series time. Boston Red Sox, Colorado Rockies. You know, I gotta say, I'm no huge sports fan. I haven't memorized all the statistics that you can know about baseball or anything like that, but I'm very excited. I'm excited for the Boston Red Sox, and I'm a little sad. I'm a little dejected when I think about the Colorado Rockies. They're so cute with their little black uniforms and the little pointy things that they got on their shoulders, and they're trying so hard, and they really believed for a minute that they might win the World Series, but it's just not going to happen. Yeah, I'm afraid that the big red pitching machine is destroying their little dreams. Boston Red Sox are going to win the World Series. It's pretty obvious to me. I'm hoping they do it in 4 games. We don't need any extra stuff. No frills. Let's just beat them and get it over with. Anyway, I think it's been very exciting. I've enjoyed seeing Papelbon, pitching in there, and Josh Beckett doing an incredible job. The little Japanese guy, I can't remember his name, not Daisuke, but the new one, Usugaru or something like that. He did great in the last game. So it's good stuff. Go ahead and watch it. If you haven't watched it, you'll enjoy yourself. The other big piece of news in town, of course, is Pumpkin Fest. Pumpkin Fest went off without a hitch. We did beat Boston. We did not, however, get the world record. But you can't get the world record every year. You can't go and beat your own record all the time, or even Boston's record. You can't beat the record every year, but we did beat Boston, and that's really the important thing. We have to be the destination location for anybody who wants to see a whole bunch of carved up, lit up pumpkins on, middle of October. Well, they got a picture here from the Keene Sentinel, fine paper that it is, of where, the pumpkins came to lay to rest. Apparently they went to the landfill. And that makes me feel bad. My pumpkin ended up at the landfill. My grandmother used to take the pumpkin every year, the jack-o'-lantern that we would use, and, we'd use it for a week or something, put candles in it, and then she'd make a pumpkin out of it. At least I think she did. I always got the impression that she would take the old jack-o'-lantern and make a pumpkin pie out of it. And how come they're not making things with the pumpkins, with the old pumpkins? How come they're not feeding them to the homeless people or whatever? I mean, we've got homeless people in Keene, right? Or at least poor people. Is somebody on government assistance in Keene? I'm sure that must be the case. Can't they eat pumpkins? Look at all these pumpkins just rotting. They're gone. They're dead. They're gone now. And it seems like a terrible waste to me, all these pumpkins wasted and stuff. We could feed the people who are on government assistance in Keene. They could eat pumpkins and euthanized cats and dogs from the Humane Society. Doesn't that seem like a good idea? Then you're not wasting all that perfectly good food. I, for one, had a great time at Pumpkin Fest, and hate the idea that all those pumpkins are getting wasted. So I saw this week an extraordinary amount of articles on real estate in Keene, and the whole Monadnock region, and some good news, some bad. I'm liking good news. I want to see good news in real estate in Keene, but there's some bad news too, and I think that some people just don't get it as far as real estate. It's people make their decisions on where they're going to live based on a whole bunch of things. And it's not just Keene. It's, the whole nation's having some real estate problems. But people are buying houses. They're still buying houses. And you just have to make your community look like the best place to buy. The it seems to me that the taxes on a house in Keene, $5,000 for a house that comes in at that's worth $200,000, $5,000 a year is a lot. And I think some people are going to make the decision to move elsewhere and not have to pay those taxes. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't it make sense that some people are choosing not to move to Keene and it's hurting the Keene real estate market because of the taxes? Okay, I'm not moving to Keene. I currently live in Keene. I have bought property. I am moving out of Keene in order to not have the taxes. So if there's bad real estate news, one of the places we can look is to our city council to cut taxes. You know, there's awful lot of money getting tossed around. We're building big, beautiful roundabouts for $4.2 million. We've got a community center there. We've got some of the best schools in the nation. They're just lavishing money about. So, you know, take a look. Speaking of other news, there's the Keene Freedom Fest is coming to town tomorrow from noon to 3 p.m. right there at Railroad Square. Rain or shine, there will be the New Hampshire Coalition for Common Sense. We'll have a booth. The City Council candidate Julia Miranda will be there, and the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, among many others. So come on out, see what they've got to say, and have a good time. So in the Sentinel, I've been seeing a lot about candidates. You know, candidates you've never heard of before, you're never going to hear of again, and then, of course, the big ones, and ones that wish they were the big ones, and just all kinds of people talking about all kinds of stuff. And it seems like every one of them's got some kind of plan. They've got some big plan on how they're going to solve all our problems. And a lot of it just seems like posturing to me. You know, when you're talking about, I'm going to change this government program and make it work better, what government programs ever worked? Stop and think. Tell me a government program that's worked. Now, if you want to tell me a government program that's worked, my name is Mark. You can write me at Mark, M-A-R-K, at freekeene.com. Please tell me the government program that's worked. Now, when you think about worked, there's a couple of things you got to think about. Now, I don't mean if you throw enough money at a problem that you can finally get something to happen. That's not worked. That's what we consider to be worked when it comes to the government. Like, for instance, public schools. You know, we pay about twice as much to educate the average student in public school as they do for tuition in the average private school. Twice as much. If I went to the car dealership and I bought a Honda Accord for twice as much as it costs, I paid $50,000 instead of the $25,000. My wife, Mrs. Edgington, would not call that successful. She would call that an abject failure. So you have to when you're telling me a government program that works, you have to tell me one that was successful from a financial standpoint too. Not that you spent twice as much money on it and then, you know, got some result. These candidates all have some new government program that they want to put forth to us on some silver platter, you know, whether it's socialized health care in some manner or another. And I would totally agree that we have some problems in health care in the United States. Absolutely agree with you. I would say most of those problems have come from government intervention. Fully one half of the dollars that are spent in the medical field are government dollars. They come from Medicare, Medicaid. Why does Medicare? Because Medicare covers people over 65. People over 65 get a disproportionately large amount of the medical care in the United States. So we already have half socialized medicine. They're not proposing to bring in socialized medicine. They're proposing to bring in more socialized medicine. Socialized medicine's already failing. If you want to see what it's like, look at Walter Reed Hospital in the VA. That's what it's going to be like. That is not a failure of the private sector, even though Walter Reed has some contracts with private organizations. Walter Reed is a government establishment, and they don't have the same incentives that private organizations have. If you want to see failures of privatization, you should go look at private hospitals, not at Walter Reed. Walter Reed is a failure of government hospitals. And really, it's a failure. It shows, it's something you can look at to show how good the government's going to be at running anything. Whether it's going to be running, the local electric company, which some states have, government electric companies, whether it's running the local water treatment plant, which we do. We have a government-run water treatment plant, and we're being sued. Whether it's garbage pickup. Plenty of communities, if I told them that we had private garbage pickup in Keene, New Hampshire, they couldn't imagine how it's done. How do you get your garbage picked up when the government doesn't pick it up for you? It's amazing. But if the government doesn't step up, people, and just spend our money by force, take the money that they got from taxes and, shove it out there, then normal people will do it. We here in Keene, there have been people that have raised a cry when they don't get their fall leaves picked up by the government. Well, it's not like the government comes by for free and picks up your leaves. They pay people, whether it's a government employee or whether they have to pick up private contractors in order to handle the load. They pay people. They buy trucks specifically to pick up these leaves. Nothing's free when the government does it. And as a matter of fact, it costs twice as much. So I would encourage you, when you're looking at your presidential candidate, to think about the little programs that they're offering, whether it's Hillary. It seems like every Democrat at this point is offering socialized medicine. So I don't know what, there's nothing new about socialized medicine. Good old Mr. Edwards wants to make sure that we all do public service, which sounds like the draft to me. It absolutely is the draft, and I don't understand why Democrats want to bring back the draft, but they seem to. They're supposed to be pro-peace, but I don't see a lot of evidence in that. Barack Obama, which I saw in the paper, he was called the new Jack Kennedy. No. Jack Kennedy had a plan. What's Barack Obama's plan? Is all I've heard him say is more of the same crap. There's a new hope. He's talking about new hope, but hope in what? He's not saying anything. He's an attractive man, absolutely. He's well dressed. He's young. That's sort of new in the new hope arena, but he's not really offering anything. I could be the first black president. Big fat hairy deal. You're black. So what? That's not a qualification for leadership. I don't care whether you're the first black president or the first woman president or the first president with a third nipple. It doesn't matter to me. What are you going to do to lead the nation, or at least get the heck out of the way of the nation? Because the nation can lead itself, quite honestly. We do not need these politicians standing up front, fighting wars against people and causing all kinds of problems. Well, anyway, when you're looking at your candidate, please look at Ron Paul. If you want to find out more about him, go to ronpaul2008.com. He is a Republican, but really only in name. He's not like all the rest of the Republicans out there. He's a Republican who's a veteran. He's an Air Force veteran. He wants to completely eliminate the IRS. Can you imagine? Completely eliminate the IRS. Somehow this country managed to make it until 1913 without the IRS. How did we make it almost 150 years without the IRS? Can you imagine? Well, we did it. So take a look at Ron Paul. Take a look at what he wants to do with the Federal Reserve. He wants to, instead of having these little green pieces of paper that the government just prints up whenever it needs some more money, we're going to have money that is backed by gold and silver, or something of the like, something of value. So take a look. Got some more articles here. Let's see. George Bush wants to invade Iran and cause a World War III. That'll be great. Here we go. Man arrested after rescuing 2 people. This is amazing. A Concord man who helped an elderly couple escape their burning home was arrested after the rescue because of a scuffle with emergency workers. Stephen Rivers saw flames coming from the house across the street early Monday and ran into the burning building twice to guide an elderly couple to safety. Now, I don't know whether the elderly couple would have gotten out of the house without Mr. Rivers, Stephen Rivers, who sounds like a hero to me. I don't know whether they would have gotten out of the house. They certainly wouldn't have gotten out quite as easily, especially if he went in 2 times. It seems like a guy that runs into a burning building 2 times was probably needed for some reason or another. Just guessing. Outside, he passed out. He thinks it might have been smoke inhalation. Can you imagine smoke inhalation? He ran into a burning building twice. The adrenaline rush and some medical conditions, that makes perfectly good sense to me. Police say that when rescue workers came to help, Rivers lashed out, allegedly hitting a firefighter. He's charged with assault and resisting arrest. Rivers said he was disoriented and was mistreated. Fire officials called the incident unfortunate and said Rivers acted bravely by going into the burning building. Is this the craziest thing you've ever heard? Now, I realize it's not the longest article. I've got a whole bunch of questions after reading this. But they arrested a man who just saved 2 old people and rushed into a burning building 2 times? Oh, my God. He lashed out at a firefighter. I don't care if he punched him in the jaw. So what? I mean, the guy's a hero. If he might have been a little disoriented by smoke inhalation, big deal. This is craziness. It's absolute craziness to charge this man with resisting arrest and assault. The police officers couldn't have on the scene just said, well, it's obvious we have a hero here who, was just through a very hard and traumatic time. We're going to let this go. I don't know if this is the fault of the police in Concord. I don't know if this is the fault of the fire company in Concord. But this guy saved people. They didn't. They did not. Those that are there to protect and to serve us failed. Where were they? This guy saved somebody. And all they can do is arrest him? It's disgusting. Sickening. I'd like to hear more. I sincerely hope that I am completely mistaken about this story. I'd like to think that, I don't know, that he's an escaped killer. Something. Tell me something that makes me believe that this isn't the most disgusting thing I've read all year. Stephen Rivers is a hero and should have been treated like one, not arrested like a criminal. Speaking of people arrested like criminals. Apparently the Browns' home was full of explosives. Okay, they've locked up the Browns at this point. We still can't get enough of the Brown news. Anyway, I'm going to go on. Apparently, improvised explosive devices found in the Plainfield home of Ed and Elaine Brown, including pipe bombs, cans of gunpowder with fuses, and bombs with nails taped to the outside, according to the recently filed court documents. Federal agents also found tear gas grenades, 250 caliber rifles, and more than 60,000 rounds of ammunition. Okay. So maybe Ed Brown thought Armageddon was coming, right? Maybe he thought Armageddon was in the face of the government. I don't know what Ed Brown thought. It seems to me Ed Brown might be a little nutty. One thing I can tell you about Ed Brown is he hasn't hurt anybody. And I sincerely hope they're not going to charge him with anything further just because the house was full of explosives. So what? Has anybody read the Second Amendment? It says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say it shall be infringed a little bit when it comes to bombs and improvised explosives. It said the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, look, it's fine with me if we want to make laws against bearing arms. As a matter of fact, we have 25,000 gun laws in this country currently. Different states, federal level, the whole deal. Those are infringements on your Second Amendment. I don't have any problem with having gun laws, but if we do, we need to amend the Constitution. We need to amend the Constitution to where it doesn't say the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You can't have a phrase in there where the Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and then infringe it, because then you're violating the highest law in the land. And that doesn't make any sense. Am I speaking truth here? Let's go ahead and run an amendment through that says the Second Amendment is gone. Then we can have laws against this kind of stuff. But until then, Nut jobs like Ed Brown can have as many improvised explosives as they want in their house. Using an improvised explosive is a crime. Having one should not be. In the same way that using a gun to commit a crime should be a crime, having a gun should not be. Now, if you think that we should pass gun laws to get rid of all guns, fine and dandy. Let's get rid of the Second Amendment, then we can pass all those laws. But until then, we have the Second Amendment, and we should stick with it. Now, I'm sure that if we were to pass a law that says that we would get rid of all guns, we wouldn't get rid of all the guns that were in the hands of the government. We'd just get rid of all the guns in the hands of the people. Now, that is a step on the road to tyranny, and I would recommend against it. One of the reasons that our founding fathers, remember, they had just fought a revolution against a tyrannical regime that tried to put all kinds of rules over on them. They knew that the best way to handle a tyrannical regime, which, there's no reason just because we vote on our politicians that we couldn't get a tyrannical regime in this country. Some would say we have one now. Just because we vote on it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen. Now, the Second Amendment's the final amendment in, us being able to return the government to what we want. If the people don't have guns and only the government does, they get to do whatever they want. Remember, Stalin said, it's not who votes that counts. It's who gets to count them. Joseph Stalin. Everybody voted in the Soviet Union. They all voted. They just voted for one guy because they knew they'd have their heads chopped off if they didn't. And if you don't think we're on the road to, maybe too much government, a little bit too much tyranny, listen to this next story. Here's some proof. Dennis Township, New Jersey. Now, this isn't in New Hampshire. A second grader's drawing of a stick figure shooting a gun earned him 1-day school suspension. Kyle Walker, 7, was suspended last week for violating the Dennis Township Primary School's zero tolerance policy on guns. The boy's mother, Shirley McDevitt, told the Press of the Atlantic, Kyle gave the picture to another child on the school bus, and the child's parents complained about it to school officials. Her son told her the drawing was of a water gun, she said. A photocopy of the picture provided by McDevitt showed 2 stick figures, with one pointing a crude-looking gun at the other. The newspaper said what appeared to be the word "me" was written above the shooter, with the other name scribbled above the other, with another name scribbled above the other figure. If you put little boys alone in a room to play for very long, soon they will pick up something, and they will begin using them as guns against each other. This is what young men do. Before there were guns, young men pretended to use swords. They still do, but, that's all they knew at the time. Or bows and arrows, or anything. That's what young boys do. They play with things that, they imagine are there to kill people. You are not going to change that. To suspend this boy for drawing a gun. Now, he claims it was a water gun. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't care. This is nuts. This is the kind of nanny state tyrannical crap that I'm talking about. If it's, how much more ludicrous can you get for giving, suspending a second grader for drawing a gun in school? I mean, I suppose instead of 1 day school suspension, we could send him to some kind of re-indoctrination class. I suppose we could take him away from his loving parent here, Shirley McDevitt. She's obviously doing a bad job. The young man drew a picture of a gun. How frightening! How scary! I think I had my BB gun at age 10. Second grade, let's see. Well, he's 7. That's not too much later. Now, nobody died when I had a BB gun. I think my dad let me use his .22 rifle at 12. I certainly got to fire it somewhere around there. He would always stand with me. Nobody died. Somehow or another we managed to make it. 50 years ago, A young man carrying a rifle through the center of town would be nothing to see. It would not be unusual. I read an account of a muster that went on in Keene about 120 years ago. A muster. All the young men had guns, and they were all out there. They were the military. They were the militia. They were what's keeping us free. Somehow now a young man draws a picture of a gun. Well, I guess it's a picture of a shootout or a killing or something like that. But either way, this is craziness. This is absolutely nuts. I don't know. There was one more thing that I wanted to get to before we wrapped up, and that's a letter from Thomas A. Nephew. He says, I own a business on Emerald Street in downtown Keene. Because of this, I've been following discussions that are exploring the expansion of Main Street median to prohibit turnouts onto Emerald Street from Main Street North. Absolutely, it makes perfectly good sense that he would be interested in this. I recently attended a Keene City Council Municipal Services Facility and Infrastructure Committee meeting at City Hall where the topic was on the agenda. The committee is a subset of the City Council, and Councilor Robert H. Farrar chairs it. The discussion was lively and council members and guests participated. I felt that it was a productive meeting and learning things that I hadn't considered before. All in all, it was a positive experience until the end of the discussion neared. There was a motion on the table to wait 6 months before addressing this question. I suggested that a year might be more appropriate, since traffic patterns change with the seasons, and we would have a full picture of the changes that the roundabout will need to bring to the downtown area. This makes perfectly good sense to me, but it doesn't really matter whether he's right or wrong. It doesn't matter whether Mr. Thomas Nephew's suggestion makes any sense. It's just that he makes it. Chairman Farrar indicated that 6 months was adequate. That'll be adequate, citizen. Have a seat. One of my neighbors, another downtown merchant, stated that he thought a year would be more appropriate and pointed out that attending so many meetings on the subject pulled him away from his business. Chairman Farrar muttered, maybe we should stop fixing the streets downtown and let the merchants suck it up. Now, I wasn't there. I don't know what Mr. Farrar said. I don't know Mr. Nephew. I don't know any of these people. But this does sound like the kind of thing that would be said by one of our public servants. One of the people elected to serve us on the city council. Any city council, anywhere. Any government, anywhere. It seems to me that these people become, enamored with their own power. Well, maybe we should just have the Keene merchants suck it up and we'll stop paying for their roads. Look, do the Keene merchants need city council, or does city council need the Keene merchants? It seems to me that the city council, if they didn't have any merchants to govern, wouldn't have a government. Whereas I think that somehow or in some way, if the city council were to go away, that we'd be able to make it here in Keene. Those of us who run businesses would somehow be able to make it here. This is just my opinion and the opinion of Thomas Nephew. My name's Mark Edgington. If you want to talk to me about anything I've talked about today, get a hold of me at mark@freekeene.com. That's mark@freekeene.com. Thanks.